Hi everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Office edition of CBRE Flexcast. For this episode, we're joined by Mr. Sumit Lakhani, who's the Deputy CEO at Awfis. Sumit, and thank you for joining us today for this episode.
Thank you, Pulkit. Thank you for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking to you.
Likewise. So Sumit, India is one of the largest and the fastest growing flex markets in the world at this point of time, right? So why do you think that is the case?
So Pulkit, I have few thoughts around on it. I think there are two factors which are contributing to it. The first one is India is a very unique market. Unlike developed markets where co-working solves only the basic problem of convenience and flexibility, India is a hardcore SME occupier market. The problem statement in India is very different. SMEs are working out of grade C infrastructure spaces, right? So there's an extraordinary opportunity for us to provide a better infrastructure to these SMEs. I'll give you an example. You go to cities like Mumbai, Delhi and all, and you know the Toddy Mill estates, the Sun Mill compounds, extraordinary level of SMEs and mid-corporates are working out of these spaces. These are the companies which have turnovers ranging from about 200 to 800 odd crores, but the kind of infrastructure in the office spaces they're working out of, it's abysmal. So we are sitting on an extraordinary opportunity to upgrade all these companies into better kind of infrastructure, right? And so that's where I think the biggest opportunity lies in India. It exists in other markets like, let's say Indonesia or any emerging country like the Philippines. It doesn't exist in Singapore. It doesn't exist in, US, where it's more about the tenant improvements and, some provide flexibility and convenience. So in my lifetime, I think there's the market, if we tap, we'll be able to create, 1,000 to 2,000 odd centers around very, very easily. Wow. So that is point number one. The second part, which is, quite unique to India or, which everyone knows about is in the last 2 decades, we have seen spurts of growth happening. The next decade, everyone is touting that it's going to be the golden decade for India. We are talking about, 6.8 to 7% of consistent GDP growth in the country. Now, and with the level of urbanization which we are going to have in the country. So where will all the people go and work? They need office spaces, and the kind of solution which co-working players and flex operators are providing, if we even tap, let's say 25 to 30% of it, it's an extraordinary level of growth which the flex sector is supposed to get. So that's why I think from the flex sector perspective, the country is uniquely positioned. And this is the right place, right time for any flex operator to be operating right now.
Absolutely. And in that entire growth story, right, and especially from a flex demand perspective, what do you think is the potential of tier 2 cities in India?
See, that's also a very interesting part. If you look at how the growth in developed world has happened, it's not only that a New York, LA and Chicago are the only 3 cities which are driving the complete growth or the metros over there. Ultimately, the growth in US came around with about 35 odd cities participating in the growth. Similarly, in India, it's not only going to be restricted to 7 metros. We are going to have 20, 22 odd cities participating around in our growth. Even with the urbanization which we talked about, people are not only going to move into the top 7 metros, they're also going to move into cities like Ahmedabad, Indore, Lucknow, Jaipur, Kochi and Coimbatore and many more. So we are decently and extraordinarily, optimistic around on tier 2. We started experimenting with tier 2 cities around prior to COVID, where we set up our centers in Chandigarh and all. And we saw the growth coming from occupiers like, you can say, conventional companies who need to have offices in all these cities, right? Now, they were already holding their satellite offices in conventional spaces. It was difficult to manage. They were having 25 to 100 seater offices, no one wanted to manage them, and they were not doing. So the moment flex operator comes over there, they're very happy. So those occupiers are happy. So one level of growth comes from there. But now, fast forward to today, post-pandemic, what also happened during pandemic is, the reverse immigration. The reverse migration of, the talent from tier 1 cities to tier 2 propelled companies to go back to these tier 2 cities and be near the talent. Second, from 2020 onwards, after the first wave till 2023, we have been in a war for talent in the IT spaces. So the companies actually started having their strategies that they need to be closer to talent, and they set it lot of operating across these tier 2 cities. We have led through the tier 2 strategy for a lot of larger IT Fortune 500 companies ourselves, where we have delivered spaces for them in Jaipur, Bhubaneswar, then Indore, Ahmedabad. So that's what we have been doing. So I think tier 2, if I have to take a guess, in the next 2 years, it will be about 10 to 12% of our overall growth. But fast forward to next 5 years, I think it will be almost about 20% of our overall scenario that tier 2 can participate. And when I say ours, it can be overall for the sector as well.
So what role do you think that the landlord or the developer community has played so far in shaping the sector?
So, Pulkit, landlord is the most important stakeholder, in us. It's as important as the customer, so they're the most important stakeholder. I think they have played an extraordinarily big role in shaping the sector. One, in 2015 and 16, people betting on co-working, giving us space on lease was a big leap of faith which a lot of developers, took, because it was a very nascent industry and they were taking a kind of a larger risk with us. To a scenario where they partnered with us in a way similar like any retail services or like a hotel operator would do. So we think they have played a kind of a big role. If they were not there, we wouldn't have been able to open, so many centers, create a network, create a demand ecosystem like that. And the co-working sector wouldn't have been here till now.
And what, like you mentioned, right, some of them have been your partners as well. So what excites them to be sort of a partner of sorts in these kind of businesses?
See, I'll put you, India is again, decently unique in terms of the supply ecosystem. About 70% of our commercial real estate supply is unorganized market. So when I say unorganized, it's not held by larger institutional space owners like, Prestige, DLF, Blackstone. 70% is owned by HNIs, family offices, and all. Now, whenever there is a vacancies, these vacancies range from about 5 to 20% across various, micro markets. What we are talking about is someone is losing money, someone is, paying common area maintenance, property tax from their own kind of pocket. And these are the guys for whom commercial real estate is not the bread and butter. It's not the primary business. They don't have the leasing teams, their own teams and all. And they don't get support from all the stakeholders the same way which a DLF or a Prestige or a larger institution would get. Now, the way we thought was, if can we solve a problem on the supplier side for these space owners, partner with them, provide a kind of a occupancy solution for them, and that's how our journey also started. Our pitch to the space owner was, partner with us in a similar manner where you have partnered with a Starwood for your hotel, right? We'll carry the risk together in terms of, by doing profit share and revenue share, and you also invest the capex, and we'll give you a return on the capex towards the fit outs. And interestingly and fortunately for us, a couple of initial players, they backed us. Then we were able to show great results. We were able to show that we were outperforming the market, we're giving them a better returns, and then we have been able to grow our network. Currently, almost about 70% of our supply is in partnership with these space owners. So we'll say we are more of a supply-driven company. And the space owners have played a kind of an extraordinary kind of a role.
So Sumit, multiple strategic investors have placed their trust in Awfis in the past, right? So why do you think that is the case? And how do you think that these strategic or global investors perceive the flex market in India today?
So Pulkit, we have been extraordinarily fortunate with a lot of investors putting up faith in us from the early days itself, and we have if I can say, a very enviable kind of a cap table now. I think the first reason, which is the macro. Even in early 16 and 17, I saw a lot of VCs and private equity understanding the potential for the market. They were great kind of global narrative around on the sector. People loved it. What I think changed was in 18 and 19, I started seeing private equity getting interested in the sector. They started realizing that the operators which are operating primarily for India and who are not copying any kind of global models, who have a kind of a very interesting business model specific for India, there is a great kind of a merit there. Because traditionally our business is a high grade cash flow business. It's a brick and mortar business with very what you can say sustainable kind of revenues, very predictable revenue streams. So it's a typical private equity investable kind of a business with high ROCEs and high contribution margins. So that's why private equity guys love it and lap it up.
And is it also specific to your business because a lot of your business is asset light and managed aggregation driven, or you think no, that's a larger narrative?
I think I told you about specifically with respect to our business, I see had been a more interest from private equity and VCs because of the asset light nature of the business, and we have been running a very specific kind of business model. The other aspects, I think what funds love about us is our execution abilities. The way the team has been built up, we run the largest network of co-working. When people understand the back end of it, they love the scenario that we as a player can become a very large player, similar to what a McDonald's has done in the country. Yeah. We can do a similar thing in co-working. So that's why the interest for private equity and VCs gets more piqued with us specifically.
Makes sense. And do you think taking this a step forward, that will India see any IPOs from the flex sector? Is this industry ready for that kind of?
See, my personal opinion is retail investors and the public market investors are going to love this sector. Like I mentioned, there is a predictability in terms of revenues. A lot of operators now are operating at a decent scale with very profitable kind of and established business models. We all started somewhere in 15 and 16. Right. Most of the operators around. Everyone has a very scalable kind of thing. Now, this is also the time where we will be able to demonstrate to the market almost about 30 to 50% year-on-year growth, or 30 to 50% kind of ROCEs. These don't exist in a lot of businesses. So my sense is the public market investors are going to love it. The second thing I would say is there are no direct proxies, no clear listed companies in India in co-working sector, but there are a couple of proxies. I look at proxies in three different categories. The first category I look at is hospitality space. So the likes of Marriott's, Lemon Tree Hotel, because a lot of hotels also follow a kind of a asset light approach. They play an operator approach, which is very specific to what we also do. Right. So the markets they understand the nature of that business. So they will probably look at our sector a bit like that. The second, there is a nature of retail services in our business. So when I say F&B retail services, so more like how Burger King and KFC have grown across various micro markets by providing a very consistent product, a lapped up kind of real estate in those micro markets. So there is going to be a kind of a scenario where people will start believing, and they know that a couple of other companies and other sectors have done it. So within co-working operators, the operators with decent kind of execution capabilities, they can also do it. So the third, a bit far-fetched, but multiplex chains. So I'm talking about the occupiers who become anchor, right? We also become anchor tenants for a lot of customers, and then ultimately it becomes a customer service. So these are the kind of three different sectors which are unique, which have done well in the public markets. I think co-working as a sector is a very IPOable kind of a sector from my perspective.
Thank you, Sumit. That's been a very engaging and insightful discussion with you as always. Thank you for answering all of my questions so candidly.
Thank you, Pulkit. It's been my privilege to be part of this Flexcast. I also want to thank Team CBRE, who had been a great evangelist for co-working sectors over the last couple of years.
Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into the Office edition of CBRE Flexcast. We shall see you soon again with another eminent personality from the Indian flex industry. So until next time.